Chapter 17, Broken. "So how's your picture taking coming along?" asked Noor. She slipped her pencil into her biology book and peered down at him from the dining room table. "Not so good," said Faddy with a weak smile. He sat on the floor inspecting the inside pocket of his backpack. He'd already overturned the bag and scattered its innards all over the shaggy olive-green carpet. The honey tin skidded to a halt next to the three-legged coffee table. Faddy quickly threw a notebook onto it so that Noor wouldn't ask what it was. The roll of film that Ms. Bethuna had given him that morning was nowhere in sight. Darn! He'd planned on using that over the weekend. "Not so good doesn't sound too good," said Noor. "What happened?" Faddy paused, hating to admit his last picture had been a failure. He sat back and sighed. "I thought I'd come up with the perfect picture when I went to San Francisco with Dad, but now I'm not so sure. Is there anything I can do to help?" "No, you've helped me enough already," said Faddy. He unzipped the side flap and poked around. "You gave me the money to join the club. Now it's my responsibility to win the contest." No film hidden among his pens and pencils. "I definitely left it at school. Double darn." "Faddy," said Noor, her voice an octave lower, "I know you're an excellent photographer. You know all the tricks Dad taught you, but don't be too disappointed if you don't win." Startled, Faddy looked up at her and frowned. "What does she mean, if I don't win?" Noor held up a hand. "Now, don't get me wrong. You probably have a better chance at winning than anybody else, but I'm going to win," said Faddy, his voice stiff. Okay, said Noor. "I'm sure you will." Faddy stuffed everything back into his bag. "I just need to come up with an amazing concept, something unique, something that tells a story, is full of emotion and connects with the viewer." "How about me?" said Noor. She struck a model's pose and batted her eyelashes. "I want to win, not lose," said Faddy. He gave her a mock grimace. "Look here, you little twerp," said Noor, shaking a fist at him. "Well, if you win that trip to India, it would be awesome." Faddy looked down the hall towards his parents' bedroom. His mother had barely come out all week. There'd been no news about Mariam for more than 3 weeks now. Noor caught his wandering look and pursed her lips. "Carla Niloufer is coming later this afternoon. She's taking Mum shopping." "That's good. She needs to get out," said Faddy. He shook off the feeling of unease. "Tell me about it," said Noor. Her lips twisted in frustration. Her health is fine now. She's not doing herself any good by lying in bed all day long. "I know, especially when we have to eat Dad's cooking," added Faddy. They looked at each other and grinned, though worry still lurked in their eyes. Faddy zipped up his backpack. "Look, I left the film that Miss Bethuna gave me at school. I'm going back to get it, and then go to the lake for some inspiration." "Okay, but don't be late. I'm cooking dinner." Faddy pretended to gag and ran out of the door as Noor threw a tattered cushion at him. Faddy stood on his toes and felt along the top shelf of his locker. At the right corner he felt a familiar cylindrical shape. "There it is," he thought with a sense of relief. He grabbed the roll of film and stuck it into his back pocket. "Now I've got 6 days to find that great shot. No pressure." Yeah, right. He closed his locker with a muffled clang and headed back toward the front door. The only sound in the empty school was the slap of his tennis shoes against the checkered floor and the drone of the janitor's vacuum coming from the teacher's lounge. Faddy stepped outside and looked up at the sky. Still enough 3 hours till sunset. Good. Perfect light to experiment. He landed on the bottom step when a sharp rustle in the bushes along the other side of the building caught his attention. He paused. A second later they sped up. Probably just a couple of cats, but let's not take any chances. He jogged toward the back of the school, which was the fastest way to get to Lake Elizabeth. He just rounded the corner when 2 guys burst through the bushes in a flurry of leaves. "Catch him!" sounded Ike's familiar growl. Oh, crud, thought Faddy. He leapt forward toward the parking lot and broke out into a run. His backpack thumped against his spine as he looked back. Ike sprinted after him with Felix a few feet behind, brushing dead leaves from his hair. There were only 2 cars in the lot since school had ended hours before. His heart thumping wildly, Faddy reached the middle of the lot, past an old station wagon and swerved around a little red hatchback. He paused, breathing in short gasps. The lot was enclosed by a metal fence, and the gate that led to the side alley was closed. Double crud! Someone had locked it for the weekend. "You head him off!" shouted Ike. He ran past the station wagon and pointed to Felix to go along the back. "Oh no," whispered Faddy. He inched towards the hood of the tiny car, looking for someone, anyone, to help. The alley behind the school was desolate, and so was the playground. "I've got to get back to the front of the school and make a run for it." He circled past the headlights as Ike reached the back of the hatchback. As Ike came up the side, Faddy ran flat out back the way he'd come. The distance back to the front of the building seemed miles away, and in his haste Faddy faltered, tripping on loose gravel. As he slowed, he caught sight of a side entrance used by faculty and staff. Regaining his balance, he bolted sideways, coming to a stop at the double doors. He yanked on the handle. It was locked. He pounded against the sturdy metal. "Help!" he shouted, his voice a hoarse rasp. Ike had circled around the hatchback and raced toward him. Faddy pushed off from the door and ran, but Ike was too fast for him. He grabbed Faddy's shirt from the side and yanked him back. Off balance, Faddy stumbled while Ike tackled him onto the rough asphalt. Faddy sprawled on the ground, scraping his hands and knees as he went down. "Got you, you little terrorist," hissed Ike, his breath hot against Faddy's ear. With his face plastered against tiny fragments of gravel, Faddy saw shiny red and white high tops pounding towards him. "Way to go, Ike," crowned Felix. While Ike held him down, Felix ripped off Faddy's backpack. "Let's see what you've got in here," he said and sniggered. "A bomb? A manual for flying airplanes?" "Let go of me," said Faddy. He turned back toward the boys. Scratches ran along his left cheek. "Why are you doing this?" he yelled. "I haven't done anything to you." "Shut up," growled Felix. After unzipping the bag, Ike violently shook it, dumping out its contents. The photography books went flying out first, followed by his pencil case and the honey tin. "No!" Faddy yelped in horror as his Minolta XE tumbled out last. As if in slow motion, the camera sailed through the air and hit the black asphalt with a sickening crunch. Broken parts flew in all directions as a huge crack appeared in the lens. "No! I needed that to win the competition." Blind rage flowed through Faddy, fueling a sudden burst of energy. He spotted Mariam's tin, and he growled, a deep guttural animal sound. He twisted around and grabbed Ike by the shoulders. With superhuman force he pulled him down. Before Felix could react, Faddy had used his legs to flip Ike to the ground and scrambled on top of the redhead's stomach. "How could you do that?" he shouted, tears of rage slipping from his eyelashes. With balled fists he swung. He got in a good punch or two before Felix pulled him off. Faddy twisted in his grasp, bent sideways and bit Felix on the shin. "Ow!" hollered Felix. He dropped Faddy like a hot potato and grabbed his leg. Faddy lunged forward and drove his head into Felix's stomach, knocking the wind out of the boy. They both tumbled to the ground. "Why, you little!" yelled Ike. As Faddy and Felix wrestled on the ground, Ike grabbed Faddy's legs. Faddy held on to Felix, and soon all 3 boys were a mess of arms and legs rolling around the parking lot. As Faddy felt a punch to his jaw, he heard the rattle of doors open. "Stop it right now!" ordered a high-pitched voice. From a gap between Felix's legs and Ike's elbow, Faddy caught a glimpse of the old white-haired janitor. The man dropped his trash bags and hurried toward them. "Stop this instant, you ruffians!" he huffed. "Let's go, man," panted Ike. He got in a last punch to Faddy's side and pushed away. Faddy held on to Felix's leg as Felix tried to get up. "Get off me, you camel turd!" howled Felix. The janitor had nearly reached them when Felix twisted away and ran after Ike, who'd climbed over the back fence. All Faddy could see were broken pieces of his camera lying on the ground. It's broken. His heart sank. I'm going to have to report this to Principal Hornstein, said the janitor, eyeing Faddy with suspicion. Fights on campus are serious business, young man. Faddy nodded. He didn't care how much trouble he was in. He showed the janitor his ID but claimed ignorance on the other two boys' identities. As the man returned to his trash bags, Faddy picked up his stuff along with the pieces of his camera and headed home.